doesn't take all that much to provide a really firm buffer to a very hard reality. But I think something is interesting. We have the ability now of mass communication, being able to see clearly the playbook that's happened over and over again with this debt and death paradigm, that we don't have to have this happen anymore. And I think that there is an opportunity for humanity to come into a golden age after this. I see, 5, 10, 15 years of bad times, and certainly the areas that are most dependent upon the dollar and this paradigm are going to suffer the longest. But we have the ability, and I think when these communities, these liberty-minded communities are established, the wealth, the brains, the things that they're going to be able to do in creating a society that is sustainable, that is, more towards better quality of life and not necessarily pushing things to the extreme, we can create a society that is, doesn't have to go through these cycles. One of my favorite books is The Fourth Turning from Strauss and Howe, talking about the cyclical nature of history, and that every 80 years we have these major paradigm shifts and crisis. And 80 years before where we were today, we had World War II and the Great Depression. Certainly, the fate of the world hung in the balance. And 80 years before that, we had the Civil War and the fate of the nation hung in the balance. And 80 years before that, we had the Revolutionary War, and before that, the War of the Roses. And it seems like every 80 years is major shifts in how the world works. Well, this cyclical nature only started when we had a fiat banking, privately held system, and it's a natural system that if you have a way of life built on war and death, which is what if you look back throughout history, I mean, the more debt we have, the more wars we have, the more wars we have, the more debt we have.
Right.
If we can break that cycle once and for all, even if in small communities like a local town or Utah or something, where we could start showing humanity that there is a better way of living. We don't need to have, an unsustainable way of life. We don't need to have debt. We don't need to have, war. We can have individual liberty and let people do things that they want without regulations and laws, and then the regulatory agencies that come in and any centralized forces. I mean, anything that can be done through voluntary cooperation without having a hierarchical system. And these are all things that I'm working for and laying the intellectual foundation in my Silver Shield report. And, one day, we'll all move to, Utah, Montana, maybe go up to where John Wesley Ralph is. And we're gonna put our feet and passions and capital and ideas, and we're going to work to build a better way of life.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it for my kids.
Yeah, no, I know you are. And a couple of things I want to cover before I let you go, though, because I think it's important for the listeners. Number one, just to support what you're saying there, the immorality of this system, this debt-based, war-based system, is spreading and has spread throughout society. And so that those with retirement plans that are invested in the Lockheed Martins and the Boeing Aerospace and the GE, the companies that make the weapons of war, people have their time and money and their futures invested in this system. And so the immorality of the system becomes part of their entire life view, and that immorality spills over, and it's very disturbing to me, and I know it's disturbing to you, and that's the system that needs to end. We need people to want to get out of that paradigm. Sadly, those who just watch CNBC all day and want to monitor their portfolios don't really care. They're only happy when their portfolios go up, and that's a huge problem, and I think that's why the silver bullet, the solution, physical silver, is such an important one, because it is a moral investment to make. But I want to ask you this. In terms of finding balance in your life, Rawls' piece had a profound impact on me, so I wrote the article. He's describing a collapse that could be so severe that the power grid goes down, and if the power grid goes down for any extended period of time, we could see half the population die off in a winter. So here's my question. I have a lot of silver. I buy it as often as I can in physical form. I love silver. I agree with you. It is the opportunity of a lifetime. But having said that, for those that are listening that haven't done the proper preparations that are necessary for a worst-case scenario, what should we tell them to do? Because in a lot of your videos, you're saying sell everything you have and buy silver. And I think we need to strike a balance, because if we hit a worst-case scenario, people are going to suffer.
Yeah. when I say sell everything that you have and buy silver, it is talking about financial instruments, and I have always mentioned that you have to have the buffer, whether it's food, ammunition, fuel. I spent tons of time working on that. It just seems that people want to talk more about silver because of that. Listen, Sean, I have at least a year's worth of storable food. I have a lot of food. I have a lot of toilet paper. I have tons of ammo. I probably have 10,000 rounds of 5.56, more than I could ever throw down range. I got my 3 handguns. I got 2 shotguns. I got a lot of stuff. I got dogs. At some point, if you have the basics covered, you can go overboard with the food and stuff like that. And I'm of the opinion, everybody says, you can't eat silver. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll be able to buy what I need when the time comes, because there hasn't been any economy in humanity that doesn't value a good silver coin, that doesn't value gold. And I still think, you need a buffer, but I still think the relative purchasing power of silver is dramatically undervalued, even in a collapse scenario. So when there's this kind of Mad Max time, having a ton of silver doesn't necessarily do any good. But tell me that, the food that you can buy right now is, it's still affordable. It's there's grocery stores full of food. I mean, the relative nature of food is plentiful. I mean, we have obese Americans because there's so much food, which automatically tells you that food's relatively cheap. And food's relatively cheap because oil is relatively cheap. I think that the relative nature of silver being so rare, and the amount of financial fraud and the amount of financial dollars that are in the financial world, think about it. Just the derivative market is a quadrillion-dollar business. I did silver in perspective. The unfunded liabilities, trillions of dollars. The residential real estate market, trillions of dollars. The commercial real estate market, trillions of dollars. The stock market, trillions, billions. That's all in paper wealth, financial wealth. In the real world, if silver is a financial asset, is so undervalued relative to those. And when this all happens, where's all that wealth going to go to? Do you think people are going to stock up on Cheerios and toilet paper? There's only a certain amount of wealth that you can dump into that. They're going to jump into gold and silver, I think, on a heavier basis. And that valuation is going to run up much quicker than food and fuel, I think, in this case. And I could be wrong, but that's why I have a huge buffer to me. I'm not going to be able to live 3 years without any, new food stocks coming in. But the idea is to have a buffer, because food's not going to disappear. It's just going to become more expensive. It may not be in the quality or quantity that you want, but food is not going to disappear. Well, that's, I think, going to be the major growth industry to get us out of this, is those that do create food are going to be able to make a good amount of wealth. But, I've said, got to have a buffer, got to have the means of protecting your buffer, and then everything else into silver.
Yeah, and you've put out such amazing videos. You're really you've turned into quite the workhorse in the space. The Silver Bullet, Silver Shield videos are just, and that's why I wanted to address this, because your videos are so expertly done. Your information is spot on. You do a great job with those, and they're very compelling. So for new folks listening, I don't want people to get hurt by having, a safe full of silver and nothing in the basement to eat when times get rough.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, your videos are so darn compelling, and you've gotten so good at editing. What are you using? Are you using Final Cut Pro?
Yeah. In fact, I asked you about it. I had watched your videos, and I think that you've done a great job. What was it, 5-6 months ago, I said, hey, I got all these great articles, and I got the Sons of Liberty Academy. I wanted to redo that. So I just took it upon myself to learn it. And Sean, I didn't know what a hyperlink was 3 years ago. Okay, I didn't have an email account. I was the most computer illiterate person out there, which is a shame, because I'm only I just turned 38. So, I'm relatively young. I should know this stuff, but I lived in a little world where I didn't need to use computers. I had people do that for me. And but it goes to show that if it's something that you're passionate about, don't be afraid to try. I mean, even prepping, here we are, we just got done talking about prepping. Don't be afraid of it. Just do something. And it's the progress, the ability of you making small steps every day, that's what gives you the confidence, the motivation, and allows you to become independent, not having to worry about relying upon others. And if you fail, that's great. That means that you learned a lesson, so you don't do it again, and that's where experience comes from. And that's why I'm so passionate. I wish people would just get out there and stop, diddling around the internet and start taking some physical action in their life, even if it's something that they don't know about. Gardening. I've never gardened in my entire life. Last year I put in 4 raised garden beds, threw some dirt in there, put some fertilizer, watered the thing. I can't tell you the wonderful fruit that I got out of that garden. But I'm doing it now while the music's still playing, while there's still, it's not a life or death situation. Because I tell you what, when this collapse happens, it's not the time to experiment with learning how to shoot, growing your own food, preparing, storing, doing all that other stuff. That's when it's too late. Because I tell you what, the pressure is going to be too intense at that time, and you're going to be dealing with so many other issues that learning is going to be very difficult. So, I don't know how other way to do this, but just get out there, try something, learn something that has real tangible value that'll be, more valuable in the next paradigm. If you're working in Walmart, if you're in sales, if you're shuffling paper somewhere, learn how to garden, learn how to cook, learn how to hunt, learn how to electrical and solar and all these things that are going to become incredibly valuable. The next generation of high-paying jobs is not going to be stockbrokers, lawyers, accountants, video producers. It's going to be the farmers, the plumbers, the gunsmiths, the things that people do, real things in the real world. That's what's going to be valued.
That's right. Yes, and Jim Rogers has said the same thing. The future will belong to the farmer. You're right.
Yep.
Well, I listened to that entire mini rant of yours right there with a big smile on my face because it was very inspirational. You're right. Just everybody needs to take action. Find your passion and do it and learn it. And if that's going to be editing, then buy a Mac, get Final Cut Pro, and start doing videos like Duane. Start informing people because I know we all get tired of sending out those emails to friends and family of here's a link, please read this important story, and then people get tired of it, and then you start getting nasty emails back like, why are you such a gloom and doomer? So stop sending those emails and start producing videos that'll reach thousands of people. Yeah,
that's another great point, Sean. I wasted a lot of time trying to convince my family and friends, and the number one problem, and I want people to realize this, the number one problem why your friends and family don't listen to you is because they know you from being a kid. They know you from, the drunk guy. They know you from the guy who, tripped or, whatever. They know, They know your background. Like, to me, people look at me and they're like, oh my God, you're Silver Shield. Well, people don't realize I was the kid that got picked on in school because I was the new kid in school every time, and all this other stuff.
Sure.
So if you go out there and start talking truth, people will resonate with you. They'll say, hey, I feel the exact same way, and thank you for clarifying what I feel. And you'll be a lot more effective reaching more people. And who knows, maybe I'll be the one that wakes up your dad, but you might be the one that wakes up my dad,
I think that's such an interesting point. I'll just share this. God love my mother, but I don't think she knows me because, Chris, I really, truly don't believe she's ever spent more than 5 minutes on my website. Now, how much do you think she could learn about me if she did? And so families are your toughest critics. So I quit beating your head against the wall. I know you love them. I know you want to wake them up, but people have to want to wake up. And, of course, we've talked about that before, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just like an alcoholic. And that's why I said in that interview that we did with Brother John and Carrie, I said, it would be great, if we could, all sober up and come out of this American dream and touch reality and throw the bankers in jail and absolve the debt and bring our troops home and take care of ourselves and live a more sustainable life. It's not going to happen. Because right now, humanity is drunk on this way of life. And unfortunately, I don't know too many alcoholics that sober up without hitting rock bottom. So that's what's going to happen to our society. There's going to be a lot of, people drunk on the American dream that are going to hit rock bottom, and it's going to be up to the responsible people who, sobered up, woke up, took action, did something to provide that buffer. And hopefully, I really feel that there's going to be a lot of people that we touch on that are going to end up being a blessing upon humanity and their local families and communities because they were the ones that were responsible. They're the ones that took action. I can't tell you how many fathers that I know that, can't get their sons to listen or their wives to listen. And I just keep telling them, I said, prepare for them and be there for them when they do wake up, because they will come. Trust me, when this collapse happens, you watch how many people start running back home and going, oh, you were so right. Well, at that point, that's when those people who were so right really need to be compassionate, caring, and be of an opposite consciousness, and show them a proper way of living, one of love and one of compassion and one of sharing and education and equity. And I mean, that's what I think is going to come out of this. In some parts of the world, we're going to see a vastly different consciousness come out of this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, there might be room to tell those you love that I told you so, but then it's time to tell them that you still love them and then help them, because I think that the people that don't choose to wake up now are going to be in for a very painful awakening after the collapse. So you're absolutely right. We'll need to be there for those folks. Well, Chris Duane, I tell you, man, it's always about the most compelling conversation I ever have is with you and Andy Hoffman, who I really enjoy speaking with as well. You guys are just such passionate people, so thanks for all you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you again soon.
Take care.
All right, man. Bye-bye.
All right, man.
Bye.